Well, ladies and gentlemen, we do have the updated look at the college football top 25 here going into week number 3. Pretty much all of these teams have played 2 games, and we do have some movement, but no movement at the number 1 overall spot. We still do have Georgia sitting at 2-0. They did not cover against Tennessee Tech, not that it matters at all. They're trying to get out of there without injuries. They win 48-3. They were 54-point favorites. They've got 54 first place votes, and Georgia, they got some good news via Clemson App State, with Clemson crushing Appalachian State. You might think, well, Appalachian State's a group of 5 team. Yes, but they're a solid group of 5 team, and Clemson scored 56 points in the first half. Now, why would I be talking about that game in relation to Georgia? Well, Georgia crushed Clemson. Now that Clemson's crushed App State, their analytics got a lot better. And in turn, because Georgia crushed Clemson, now Georgia's analytics are even better. Georgia is the clear number 1 team in college football. I don't think anyone would really dispute it. You could certainly say I think Ohio State has the most talented roster, but based off of that big week 1 win, Clemson rebounding against Appalachian State, they're clearly a top 25 team, which gives Georgia a top 25 win over Clemson. They are the number 1 team for sure, beating an FCS team. You know, it's a shame that Georgia Kentucky game was supposed to be pretty good, but Kentucky just laid a total egg against South Carolina. The movement that we do have at the top, it is Texas. So Texas now advances in front of Ohio State. I think Ohio State is better than Texas, but I certainly respect Texas at this point being ranked in front of Ohio State. They got a huge win in Michigan. I do think that Texas caught Michigan at the perfect time. Michigan has not figured out their quarterback situation. Maybe they won't figure it out throughout the entire year, but right now we do have to value that win. Texas going into Ann Arbor. If Michigan ends the season with 4 losses, it'll probably be a little bit different looking back on that win and just how good it was. But right now, considering Michigan, they were like 41-3 in their last 44 games. Yes, that was under Harbaugh. Yes, that was with JJ McCarthy, Corum, and it was just a different overall team. But still, Texas is going to get credit for that win. They very easily could have won this game like 38-6, 31-6. Michigan scored a late touchdown. Really, Texas could have shut them out in terms of not allowing any touchdowns. Really good defense. But again, I think Texas caught Michigan at the perfect time. I had Texas winning this game and covering, but I had it at 23-13. I thought Michigan would put up a lot more of a fight, especially in the first half, and that would be a game going into late third quarter. This game was pretty much over by the middle of third quarter, which has been very rare for Michigan, especially at home over the past 4 or 5 years. You could say the Counter Stallions thing had something to do with that, but nonetheless, we really have to give Texas credit right now. That is a key win at Michigan, and Michigan is still ranked, I would assume. You do have Ohio State at number 3. Ohio State annihilated Western Michigan. I think Western Michigan finished with 99 yards of total offense. Ohio State had like 680. Ohio State is just, I mean, they are loaded everywhere. And they have a bye week this week. Then they get Marshall next week, the week after that. So Ohio State's very easy games, another 50 burger for them. And they really just kind of slept walked through the second half, especially the fourth quarter with their backups. Easy win there. They moved down 1 spot, really no fault of their own. They were 37.5-point favorites. They win by 56. The analytics loved the victory. It was a domination. So Ohio State's still perfectly fine. And in terms of the total points, Ohio State does have 1 more first place vote than Texas. And the points are only, marginally like 16 points off, where Texas is in front of Ohio State, which again, I can understand based on Texas having the way better win than Ohio State, who faced 2 MAC teams to start the year. Alabama still at number 4. So yeah, I mean, Alabama, everyone was wondering, was Alabama going to drop it all? And then they scored 28 points and I don't know about run up the score, but they definitely made that game look a lot less close than it really was. That was a ball game late in the third quarter. Going into the fourth quarter, it was 14-13. So Alabama beat South Florida. It was a tough win for them. I know the score looks like they blew them out, but Bama stays at number 4, just barely. You can see Ole Miss is gaining overall in terms of points, just 8 total points behind Alabama. They destroyed Middle Tennessee. They covered another spread. They were 44-point favorites. They easily win that game. Ole Miss, very similar to Ohio State in terms of just not facing anyone to start the season with a pulse. Furman and Middle Tennessee, but they got those 2 wins, and now they're at number 5. Missouri at number 6. That really surprises me. I certainly do not think Missouri is the number 6 team in college football, but I think they've shut out 2 teams now. They have not allowed a single point. So they were like 34-point favorites over Buffalo. They win 38-0. Week 1, they faced an FCS team. I don't know, man. I don't think Brady Cook's been all that good to start the season, but listen, this is Ole Miss, Missouri, Ohio State. They just have, none of these teams have faced anyone, so I guess we'll see, but I am surprised Missouri moved up 3 spots for basically, facing nobody's, but you do have Tennessee at number 7. Tennessee, I think, is probably a top 5 team right now. They beat NC State. That was kind of the big 7:30 game. NC State never should have been ranked. I mean, they're a fraudulent team, let's be honest, but scoring 50, they won that game like 51-10. Tennessee right now, you don't want to overreact, young quarterback, but still, week one, they destroyed Chattanooga 69-3, then 51-10 over NC State. It's still a quality team, NC State is, with Grayson McCall, but they're obviously not as good as we thought they were. They were in a dogfight with Western Carolina in the first week of the season against an FCS team, barely won that game. How about this Bowling Green, or excuse me, Penn State stays at number 8. They beat Bowling Green by 7. Very rarely will you see a top 10 team beat Bowling Green at home by 7 and not drop. So that's pretty crazy. I mean, I guess maybe that has to do with, Oregon falling, but I don't know, man. This is pretty suspect what's going on here. Oregon beats, and by the way, don't pay attention to this stuff. This is updated. I know it looks like, oh, this is week 1, but it is updated. It is kind of annoying that they don't update this area, but the overall rankings are updated. But Oregon falling below Penn State doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Maybe it was just people, I don't know, man, because Idaho did look good as well, and they beat Wyoming. So it's like, it just surprises me that Penn State barely beats Bowling Green. Bowling Green scores 24 points in the first half. I mean, listen, Penn State gets the win. I still like Penn State. I like their defense. That was a very bad performance by Penn State, though. There's no doubt about it. And then Oregon beats Boise State, a team that we would expect to be like inside the top 25. Yes, I mean, it had some fluky, the kickoff return for a touchdown, the punt return. They got a little bit lucky, but still Oregon, it's a solid win over Boise State, but people are really down on Oregon right now. They are. And we'll see how they do against Oregon State in the Civil War this coming week. But they fall 2 spots. I'm very surprised they fell below Penn State, especially Penn State struggling with Bowling Green at home. But either way, you do have Miami up to number 10. So Miami beats Florida A&M. They blew them out. And yeah, they're a top 10 team. This is just correcting it. They right now, they're the best team in the ACC by far. Cam Ward, that offense, the defense has got a lot of talented players. Florida A&M, there's not much to analyze. They easily win that game. I think they won by like 45 points. They might have been around 45-point favorites. And then you also do have Miami facing Ball State this week. So another very easy game for them, the MAC school. You have USC moving up 2 spots at number 11. Big narrative surrounding USC. The defense, a lot better. They pitch a shutout against Utah State, 48-0, easily cover the spread. USC, huge game on the road in Ann Arbor in a few weeks at Michigan. That'll be interesting. That could catapult them into the top, maybe 6 or 7. USC right now trending up after beating LSU. Although, to be fair, LSU had a pretty bad performance against Nicholls in week 2. You do have Utah down 1 spot. Yeah, so this is updated. You can see they did beat Baylor. They did not cover. They were around 14.5-point favorites. Cam Rising got injured. We'll have to see how serious that is. He always seems to deal with injuries. But Utah, we know what they are. They're a defensive-minded team. You go to Utah, it's going to be very hard to win. It's going to be very hard to score. And Daquan Finn and Baylor found that out. So they're number 12 right now. They did fall 1 spot, really because other teams moved up in front of them. Oklahoma State had a really slow start against Arkansas. I don't think Arkansas is very good. I know people could say, well, they scored 70 points in week 1. They looked good against Oklahoma State. I don't know, man. Oklahoma State, they're a little bit suspect to me because South Dakota State struggled. We all thought that was like a major win for them in week 1 against the best FCS team. Well, it turns out maybe South Dakota State's not the best FCS team. And they win this game in double overtime, 39-31. With the rules going for 2 in double overtime. And then Arkansas couldn't convert, and so they end up winning that game by 8 points. Imagine you had Oklahoma State minus 7.5, and you win the bet. I'm not even sure the line was like that. Maybe at the start of the week it was minus 7.5. It got bet up, though. People were betting on Oklahoma State, and they didn't cover because it was like 8.5. You do have Kansas State moving up 3 spots. I'm really not a fan of Kansas State. I think they got lucky against Tulane. Tulane should have won that game. But Kansas State up to number 14. Oklahoma State is at number 15. So the last game that they played was obviously yesterday against Houston. They won 16-12. They did score a safety in the 4th quarter, but Oklahoma, man, they're on watch right now. That was not a great performance there against Houston, but they're at number 15. In the SEC now, you'll take all the non-conference wins. You need to win all of them, obviously. It's a very hard league now going from the Big 12, so we will see with Oklahoma. I still think they're really talented, but there's some narrative surrounding Brett Venables. He needs to have a good year. If they lose 5 games, I think it's going to be very tough. But they are still recruiting really well. LSU, they move up 2 spots. They did not have a good performance against Nicholls at all. They were like 50-point favorites. They allowed 21 points against Nicholls in the first 3 quarters. and then nobody scored in the fourth quarter. I think they won 54-21, so they didn't cover the spread. They didn't even come close. LSU, I still think LSU is going to be good. They're really talented. Brian Kelly always does this where he loses like the first game and then they end up. Remember, LSU under Brian Kelly, they had the Heisman Trophy winner last year. It's not like they can't have really good offenses under Brian Kelly. They can. So I guess we'll see. And even that game that lost to USC, that loss is probably going to start looking a lot better because it's looking like USC is going to be a really good team with an improved defense. Now, we got to wait. But if USC goes on the road and wins in Ann Arbor, I mean, that LSU easily could have beaten USC, like easily. They lost that game by 7 points, and it was very close at the end. There was like 2 plays that didn't go their way. So LSU, let's hold it on them. It was not a great performance against Nichols, but they're still a really talented team. Michigan falls 7 spots. So yeah, Michigan suffers the bad loss. They're going to drop. It's kind of weird with Michigan because we're giving them kind of this leniency because they just went 15-0, and we'll see what happens. But they get Arkansas State this week. They're 22-point favorites, but if they lose to USC, I think they're going to be knocked out of the poll entirely because then they would be 2-2. Notre Dame down 13 spots, so I'm sure people think Notre Dame should fall out completely of the top 25, but there's just no way considering they were ranked 5th. Now they're down at number 18. I mean, you lose to a MAC school at home when you're 28-point favorites. It's terrible. I think Notre Dame, I said this, they need to go 11-1 to make the playoff unless Northern Illinois somehow has an unbelievable season to where that's like a quality loss. But to lose to a MAC school at home, it's unacceptable. And they face Miami of Ohio, who technically is like the number 1 MAC school, although maybe Northern Illinois is now. But they also face Miami of Ohio in a few weeks at home. So listen, Notre Dame, Riley Leonard does not look good throwing the ball at all. They scored on their opening drive. After that, they had 1 touchdown in like 3.5 quarters against Northern Illinois. I know Northern Illinois looked good in week 1, but it was against a very bad opponent. And then, wow, we'll have to see with Notre Dame, but that is such a horrible loss. Because they don't play in a conference championship game, I think they probably have to go 11-1. If they go 10-2, you're not getting the huge wins to really counter this terrible loss. So it's going to be tough for them to make the playoff. Louisville is up 3 spots. They covered another game against Jacksonville State. So that's a good win for them, 49-14. Although Jacksonville State, I mean, they had a decent year last year. That was like their first year in FBS. They're obviously not a very good team, but Louisville right now is trending in the ACC based on some of these other teams. Although Clemson did just wake up, it looks like, against App State. Arizona remains at number 20. I don't know how. I mean, this is not updated, but even this game in week 1, you allow 39 points to New Mexico. In week 2, they couldn't score. They were losing to an FCS team, Northern Arizona, at half 10-6. Dude, I would not have Arizona ranked at this point. I'm sorry. But there they are. You do have Iowa State, who's ranked now. I mean, I guess they beat Iowa 20-19. That's a solid win, but it's one of those games like a coin flip. But I mean, I guess you beat Iowa on the road. It's a decent win. Clemson up 3 spots. Huge performance against Appalachian State. 56 points in the first half. Crazy. 56-13. What kind of a halftime score is that? I really wish Clemson would have tried to score. I really wish that was a higher scoring game, but they didn't score much in the second half. But Clemson with Cade Klubnik, the dude had like 380 and 5 touchdowns in the first half. Clemson is a talented team. They are. Nebraska gets ranked after crushing Colorado. That was not a game at all. Nebraska's defense, especially against that terrible Colorado offensive line. Nebraska football is back with Dylan Raiola, and they've got him for 3 years, and they're probably going to make a solid bowl. I don't think they're going to make the playoff this year, but they're probably going to go 9-3, and they're going to get a true freshman QB experience. They should be really good over the next 3 years, and they've got an easy schedule. They're going to lose to Ohio State. They're probably going to lose to USC. But other than that, they've got a tough game at Iowa at the end of the season. But still, this is an easy schedule for Nebraska. We will see. Boston College. I have to disagree with this. It should have been Illinois. But Boston College gets ranked. They crushed Duquesne 56-0. Thomas Castellanos, he had a crazy good game. He was like 8 of 10 for 200 yards and 4 touchdowns. And then Northern Illinois, out of the MAC, gets ranked. Amazing news for them. And shout out to them. And then Illinois, the first team. Illinois should be ranked. They had a very impressive performance against Kansas. Boise State, I think they probably should be ranked. You lose by 3 and kind of a fluke loss against Oregon. Boise State would have won that game if it wasn't for special teams. 100%. On the road at Oregon, I would rank Boise State. A&M, they have no business being ranked. Why is A&M getting votes? A&M they lost at home to Notre Dame, who loses to a MAC team at home. Come on, guys. I think Syracuse should be ranked. Kyle McCord, man, I think Memphis should be ranked as well, honestly. So I like these teams. Washington, no, you can't rank Washington. Iowa, they lost. Kansas, I do like Kansas, but you can't rank them right now. Vanderbilt, you can't rank them yet. Why would South Carolina get votes? They nearly lost to Old Dominion. They did have an impressive performance against Kentucky, but come on. Liberty, please, God, no. Wisconsin, they're trying to rank Wisconsin to give Alabama a quality win. I'm just kidding. UNLV did score 72 points, but it was against Utah Tech. North Carolina, no. California got a nice win at Auburn, but they shouldn't be ranked. BYU, UCF is really good analytically. I like UCF a lot. And then TCU gets a vote as well randomly. But either way, guys, that's just the updated poll. That's going to do it for this video. Make sure you follow me on X. Link to that's always in the description.